7 members present. Do I have any motion to approve the agenda and the consent agenda?
So moved.
Okay, moved by Bill, seconded by David. All in favor, raise your right hand. 7-0. We're moving right along. Comments from the public. Teresa, anything? Okay. Reports and presentations. Dina?
You're up already.
All right. That was quick.
You're in October.
Is this on? Or do I?
No, it's
Yes.
on.
Okay. Hi, my name is Dina Brastiano, and I am the coordinator of the Tiny K Early Intervention Program. We have actually taken over as lead and fiscal agent of the Ottawa-Wellsville Infant Toddler Program as of this past July 1st. So our program actually, I'm the executive director there in Douglas County, and now we are here doing Ottawa and Wellsville. So I just wanted to share some information with you all about the program and what we do and how we collaborate with the school districts in both communities. The first thing was that the Early Childhood Coordinating Council here in Ottawa, Franklin County, decided that we kind of needed a fresh start, and there had been some I guess not problems, but previous concerns with the program prior to us taking over, and that they didn't have a core team of providers. They were lacking a speech therapist, they were lacking a physical therapist, and they were contracting with some folks, the early childhood special education teacher and the speech therapist from Johnson County, and they only were here once a week on Wednesdays to see all the kids in both communities. So before I took over, I really wanted to make sure that we could find a good core team, an occupational therapist, a physical therapist, speech therapist, and early childhood special ed teacher, and we have done that. So I'm excited, and we are building our program back up. So I just wanted to pass around some information. This is the change in our name. We're now called Tiny K Early Intervention instead of OWIT, or Ottawa-Wellsville Infant Toddler. So, so that's kind of neat. So I'll pass that around. And then also, I just brought some information about the program in general. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the Infant Toddler Program. Some of you. We actually provide services for children who are between the ages of birth to 3. Who have any kind of special needs. So we see children who have disabilities as well as developmental delays. We also see children who have medical concerns, diagnosed conditions or syndromes. There is a very, very long list of conditions that would qualify a child for a program, even though they might not be showing delays at the time of their diagnosis. So, so we see lots and lots of different kids. And this is the same law that enacts school district services for kids 3 to 21 with special needs. So it's the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. We're Part C, and the 3 to 21-year-old kids are Part B of that program. So when our children come upon the age of 3, we ask parents if they would like to have a referral to the school district where they live and see if their child would continue to qualify for those services when they turn 3. So we work with the school districts in that way, transition our kids who need continued services. We also have started collaborating this year with both Ottawa and Wellsville for their screenings. So when they have their community screenings on the first or second Fridays of the month, they've invited Tiny K to participate as well in those screenings right there with them. So the families have access to birth to 5 screenings for their kids. So it's kind of a nice way to get the whole family screened if they have older kids and younger kids, so that's really convenient. Right now, we are currently serving, I think, about 22 kids here in Ottawa and Wellsville. Last spring, the program served 44 families total between July 1st and June 30th. And that was a 14-child increase from the fall previous count. Right now, our fall 2012 count from July 1st to today is 37 kids. So we're trying to get up to 44 where we were last year because our funding is dependent on our fall cumulative count as well as the live birth rate for Ottawa and Wellsville. That's how the state does our funding count. Our lead agency at the state, in case you don't know, is not the Department of Education. It's the Department of Health and Environment. So that's a little different. But so far, so good. We've been really happy with them. This is actually the 20th year for infant toddler services to have services in the state of Kansas. So there are many, many services provided to families and children that qualify for the program. And they've just added a additional service this summer, speech and cued, let's see, I think it's sign language and cued speech. So that totals 17. You can read them there in number 4. We have the core team, like I said, here. And then if we would need additional services for any of our kiddos, we would contract with other places for that. The School for the Deaf and School for the Blind in the Kansas City area, they have outreach services for kids who need those services. Social work, we're hoping to help bring that in. I know that Janet in the Wellsville School District, the early childhood social worker, has said she's interested in kind of working with some of our kids as well. So, so kind of just getting all of those things going. The neat thing about our program as well is that it's all provided at no cost to families. So that's really important. They've talked about doing a sliding scale here, but so far in Kansas, they decided to just leave it at no cost. We do bill Medicaid for kids who have a medical card, but the other funding comes directly from the feds and state government. And then we also are fortunate to get United Way funding. So that was really, really helpful. And I know that 2 of our staff are just finishing up their visits to United Way businesses, so being a part of that. Our main method of providing services to children is through evidence-based practices, and I know that you all know what that is. It's the best and latest craze for serving kids. So we're really excited about doing that, and our emphasis really, because we know that kids at this age are so dependent on their families, what we really want to do is build the parents' capacity and confidence around their kids and show them ways that they can work with their children throughout the day during their everyday routines and activities using child interest, engagement, because we know that when kids are interested in playing and being with adults and being with peers, that they learn more readily, it's more purposeful, more meaningful to them, and that learning sticks, and then they generalize it to other activities throughout the day. So, so really we use a coaching approach with parents. We model things with kids, but we don't just go in, take the kid aside, and do one-on-one with that. That's not what we're about. We really want to include the entire family, show the parents and other caregivers what they can do with the kids throughout the day. And so in that respect, we do work with child care providers and daycare homes and child care center teachers, that type of thing. And I already talked to you a little bit about the transitions. I wanted to share too, I just pulled up the number of kids that we have seen here in the Ottawa School District from 2011, total the year, and this year up to date. Last year we served 51 children in the Ottawa School District, and this year so far we have served, let's see, looks like 35. So, so that's a good number, and we, like I said, we transition kids who come upon age 3. Sometimes they don't qualify, but the majority of the time they do. We do dismiss some children before they reach age 3 because they've met all their developmental milestones and they're now age appropriate. So that's our goal, but the other goal is to really minimize those secondary disabilities or delays from even happening. So that's why we really want to get in there early, and that's the benefits of early intervention. So do you all have any questions?
What's going to be the impact with Can't Care and the wonderful governor's program moving your billing capabilities and banking?
Actually, it's not affecting our program at all. So nope, we're still billing straight to the state. So they're not making us go through a company or whatever, yeah, which is very fortunate. So nothing, they've told us nothing will change. Does that make sense?
No, because I thought everything is going.
Well, for the Part C kids, they've told us that, yeah, because we've all asked, do we need to fill out these applications that are coming from these companies? And they're like, nope, nothing's going to change for you. So we're trusting that KDH knows what they're talking about.
Just verify.
Okay, I will.
Yeah.
We've done it many times, but I can do it again.
You can trust 1 week, and then it could be
I
another
know.
week to change.
I know.
If you do hear issues, I mean, talks of cuts, any changes
We
in the
need to hear
program,
We want to hear those.
let
yeah.
us know right away.
Okay.
So all of us can get involved too with legislators. and
Okay,
let
that would
everybody
be great.
know.
We
I mean,
do.
It's such an important program, and we try to do everything we can.
Thank
As you well know, and
Yeah.
it has a huge impact, and I hate to see something change.
Yeah, thank you.
I have one who's a graduate of the OWIT program, and I'm tempted to send back there.
Well, we have a hard time working with kids over 3. That's just our niche, so. I
We're
did.
successful with that.
Now, I was talking, you're almost talking about an identifiable individual.
Well, I'd identify him for you.
I did also want to thank Mr. Cat in offering us space. Our offices are here at the Central District office, and we use phones, copier, all of that, and have desk space. So that's very, very nice, and we really appreciate that.
It's really working well, I think.
Great.
Good partnership, and
Good
when
program.
Greenbush said they couldn't or wouldn't continue that, it was kind of a blessing in disguise. I think we do have a lot better program and a lot
Yeah.
more services, and
Thank you.
you know, you already mentioned it, the worry of finding all these different providers, and gosh, like that, you had it
Yeah.
all set up.
Yeah,
and
so.
it's going well.
And the nice thing, too, is that our staff in Douglas County now is collaborating with this staff. So there's more resources available to this staff. They partner in things. They're all going to come up for a workshop in Lawrence on mental health first aid. We're all going to go together, a 2-day workshop. And so just things like that are really, really nice. We have evidence-based practice meetings together, collaborate on things. And so it's a nice way to share.
What is the current way that you are finding families that are in need?
The majority of the referrals come from the medical community. So we do get lots of referrals from the physicians' offices here in Ottawa and Wellsville, as well as the NICUs, the NICUs in Kansas City, in that Kansas City area. We haven't had much luck with our screenings yet, so we're hoping to really kind of spread that word and get that out a little bit more. But yeah, we've had, most of those are coming from the doctors. So we're actually going to do a mailing, get that word out about our name change and how people can make referrals along with our brochures, and then we're going to do a special mailing to all the physicians in the Ottawa and Wellsville area. So,
You might also include the health department.
Yes.
We see a lot of kids.
yeah. And do I need to do each department separately, like WIC, immunization clinic, or just send it to Midge and she'll get it out?
She should get it out.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. I'm still learning the resources here in this area, so if you guys know of people that you think might be helpful for me to contact, or
Have you talked to Bill Burns at COF?
he's on the Franklin Children's Coalition that I'm on, so I'm kind of making those connections too.
Okay, good.
Great.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you for
Thanks.
coming.
Yeah, thank you for letting me come, and if you have any questions at any time, please let me know.
Keep up the good work. On to 5.02, Andy Price.
Okay, this is just an update of what we're doing with E-rate. E-rate, you have to apply pretty far in advance, so we're working on the 12-13 school year, which starts July 1st. And the services that we bid out are our local and long distance phone, our cell coverage, our internet, and also a web hosting service. Those are all eligible for Priority 1 E-rate. So we've gone through the bidding process. The bids have been in and the time is closed, so we've elected which ones we're going to go with. And the next step is to fill out more paperwork and get our free and reduced numbers in and all of that. But I would estimate that we're going to get 70% return on the items that we're purchasing. We've decided to stick with AT&T for our local and long distance. We're under contract with them and they have the best rates. We're going to go with Verizon, who we're year to year with right now and give us a good service on our cell phones. And then a new one is our web hosting. We had 6 different vendors submit bids for web hosting, and there was 2 or 3 that were pretty good, and the one that we picked is called Cyber School. So the way that'll work is we'll be able to create users, have logins, and teachers and staff, secretaries can each contribute to creating that web page. We'll have kind of the same look and feel throughout the whole district, and then each page will have different colors and things like that. So it'll be a lot more professional looking and still give us the flexibility to have multiple people keep it up to date. So the buildings can keep their own pages up to date, you know, all the way down to the teachers can have their own pages, clubs and sports can have their own pages. So that'll be a real nice update that will start July 1st. And then the last one, of course, was the big one. That's our internet. The only people that submitted a bid were AT&T, who we've had for a lot of years, and the city community broadband. And the city did come down quite a bit on their price, and the prices were pretty competitive. We chose the city so that we could kind of support the city. They're capable of higher speeds. AT&T's max is 100 megs. AT&T requires you to enter a 3-year contract before they do anything. They don't care how it lines up. You know, I was on the phone with them and telling them, look, we would love to go with you, but you're not really working with us, and you have competition now. And they wouldn't budge. They're charging us way too much right now because we're in a month-to-month, and we can't enter a new contract because of E-rate. So they just kind of get you in a bad spot and figure you have no other options. Well, the city's come around now with other options. So as a matter of fact, as soon as the city can get us internet, it's going to be to our best interest to just change right away. And even though we can't get E-rate until July 1st, if the city can get us internet by January 1st, we'll have much faster speed, and we would just have to eat that cost. It wouldn't be E-rateable for those first 6 months, but the amount that AT&T is overcharging us now is more than, just the overcharge is more than what the city would probably charge if we can get that working. So that's what we're working on now, but we've definitely elected to go with them July 1st.
What's their schedule at this point?
Of implementation?
Yeah.
They're going to come out on Wednesday when everybody's gone for Thanksgiving break, and we're going to get, they've already got the fiber ran, and they're going to do some terminating. And
So they have fiber into town?
yeah, they think that it's possible that they could have internet for us here over Christmas break.
So they got their main trunk in now across?
Well, they don't have the main trunk in, but they're going to get a backup trunk. That when everybody starts in July, it'll be the backup, but I'm hoping that we can use that backup for the first 6 months and then change over. But even that backup trunk is 100 megs of internet. Right now we're getting 30 megs of internet, so I'm really hoping, crossing my fingers, we can get that for the second semester, and I mean, it'll be triple the speed we're getting now.
Seems like they're trying to do everything they can to make that happen, so
Yeah.
I'm pleased. So.
And even if it's not January 1st, we're paying month to month. I'm not going to enter a new contract with AT&T, and they're overcharging us, but that's the only way out, really. The only way we can get the good price is to sign another 3 years, and we just can't do that right now. So as soon as the city gets us hooked up, we'll just call AT&T and say, see ya.
Good. That's good.
Good.
That's worked out. I know they've worked really hard on it from the city, so it's good. It's working
Still a
out.
little nerve-wracking. I'll feel good when it's switched over and we're up and running, but.
All right, any questions for Andy?
It's not, the city's not services residential, is it? It's just for business?
Commercial to start, as
Yeah.
I understand.
Right now, they're just going to be for commercial.
Are they looking to go residential?
They've talked about it, as a long-term plan, but I think they want to stick with commercial. They've talked about a long ways away, even putting towers or putting antennas up on their towers where they could serve businesses that way.
Or residential people 2 miles outside the city limits near the expansion zone with a WiMAX system, they could do very well.
Yeah, it gets a lot more difficult when you're serving to non-commercial. You got to worry more about filtering and all kinds of different things. So.
Okay.
I have that same dream.
Yes.
Me too.
I have a dream.
It'll happen.
Faster internet connection.
It'll happen sometime.
Okay. All right. Thank you, sir. Any other questions? All right, moving on to 5.03. Dr. Kraus, we had some questions for you the last time you presented our information.
Yes, and I sent the email to all of you. Hopefully, all of you received it. That's on the board. What I thought might make the most sense would be to just, if you had questions about what I wrote, we could address those, and if not, I thought it might make the most sense just to go to the recommendations and talk through those. Does anyone have a preference?
I'd prefer going the recommendations.
Yeah, let's go to the recommendations.
Okay. That's at the very end.
Yeah, it's at
Andy.
the very end.
'Cause Dennis is the only one who hadn't read it, so.
No, I read it. Well, you're very kind and gentle. Are you part of the new administration that's coming to America?
Brown Pakistan.
I did want to say this was really turned out to be a very interesting experience for me to go around and talk to everybody individually. I think too often we meet as a group, which is a good thing, but I think you also learn some things from talking individually with people. What was amazing to me was the relatively small variance in the responses that I got from anybody. I think all the administrators are pretty much on the same page and seeing the same strengths and weaknesses, and I think we have a good plan for remediating some of the things that are problematic for us. In terms of the recommendations, consistently among everybody, and this was the school psychs, Cindy Gearing, all the principals, hopeful that we could add back a curriculum director at some point, or at least have someone with that title whose sole or primary responsibility was to guide and direct curriculum. I think, my personal opinion is that we have been doing a good to above average job with that, not as well as we should, just because it is somewhat fragmented. But I think that the perception is among some of the teachers that since Dr. McCauley is no longer here, there's no one who has the expertise to make the decisions that need to be made, and I don't believe that to be true. I think the prime example of that would be when we adopted the reading series. Our elementary principals did a fantastic job with that process. At the time, it was Vicki and Josh and Jeff, and they met with the teachers. They formed a committee. They had great people working on the committee with them. And I think any negative fallout from that process has just simply been the fact that not everybody was in agreement with the final recommendation to go with Journeys. There were a couple of holdouts that didn't want to change things, thought things were working fine as they were, and we had a lot of evidence to the contrary. They weren't working fine for all of our kids. So, although that's not something that we want to blame for low test scores, I certainly think it has to be a factor that we consider. Comments on that one before we move on? Continue to support the implementation and delivery of MTSS with fidelity district-wide. We're doing that now in reading, and as soon as we feel like the time is right, we'll be looking at math and/or behavior, and I'm not even sure that the order of those has been determined for sure. One of the comments that I've heard from several of the teachers several parents rather, has been, what's taken so long with this? Why are we taking 3 years to implement MTSS? And I would like to reassure you, I think we're doing it the right way. I know that there are districts who've implemented all of them at the same time, or take 1 year for reading, the next year is math, the next year is behavior, and it turns out to be a disaster. I mean, it's just too many things, too many changes, too multifaceted to do justice to in a quick manner. The other part of that is, as our reading skills of our kids improve, you're also going to see a corresponding increase in math just from the fact that their reading comprehension is better. So I think we're on the right track there, and we'll continue to move in that direction. Develop a concentrated district-wide staff development plan for differentiated instruction. This is my 5th year here, and I know that we haven't had anything district-wide with differentiated instruction in that time. It's my understanding that previous to that, there was a substantial amount of differentiated instruction, professional development that went on. However, from talking to the principals and the teachers who've been here a longer time than I have, most of that professional development was at the knowledge level. It's what is differentiated instruction. What we need now is an application sort of delivery so that we know what does that look like in my classroom. How do I build lessons that have differentiated instruction in them? And so I think our teachers are ready for that. I know our administrators are really eager to see that happen. And so I think if we develop that, and it fits hand in glove with MTSS. It's a perfect fit. And so I think if that will be one of the things that we make a concerted effort to try and develop over this year, so that we have have something in place for the 13-14 year. And it doesn't mean that we won't be doing some of that this year, but I think as far as addressing it district-wide. The fourth one, reassess to determine if everyday math is the best curriculum to meet the needs of our elementary students. I know I got some feedback from Dave, and I appreciated your thoughts on that. There was a request at the beginning of this year to spend some more money on everyday math, which you did. Those were for the consumable materials. Had we not spent that money, we wouldn't be getting the full effect of the everyday math. I don't think the teachers at that point were saying this is not a good curriculum. One of the things that causes the issue with everyday math is since it's a spiraling curriculum, a particular standard is not necessarily taught to full knowledge or full comprehension. Mastery. It's not taught to mastery necessarily. And then it'll spiral back in a few weeks or a few lessons, whatever it happens to be. The students who struggle the most with that curriculum tend to be our special needs kids because they need to master something. They need the daily repetition. And if they don't have something mastered, if it's 2 weeks before they come back to that topic again, it's gone. They need to have the mastery of it and then build upon it. The other issue that will be with everyday math and every math curriculum that we'll look at, with the implementation of the Common Core State Standards, a lot of the items, a lot of the standards and benchmarks are introduced at an earlier grade level than we currently are. Some of them, I think, Josh, 2 years earlier. And so the trick is going to be, you know, every flyer, every email ad I get says, yes, we're completely 100% Common Core. You know, we've got it all in the bag. Well, I don't think anybody does at this point. For one reason, because the tests haven't even been developed yet. So how do you know that you're meeting them? So in the fall, well, this spring we'll get a math cadre together, and they'll start studying the elementary math program to see if we want to stay with everyday math or if there's going to be something that better meets our needs. I think the actual adoption year will be 13-14.
Being implemented in
Implemented in 13-14. So we'll have plenty of time to study.
14-15.
14-15, that's right. We're already 12-13.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, we'll start the study, have a year-long process to figure out what's going to best meet our needs, and then implement that. That'd be the same year that the new testing comes on.
Question.
Mhm.
With regards to curriculum, some being spiraling and some being, I'm assuming, mastery-based, do you have a significant looking at both of those? Are they both out there, or are you pretty much stuck with the spiraling curriculum and then have to differentiate to do the mastery level for the special needs kids?
Oh, they're both out there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, what we're hearing right now, both from Common Core trainings that we're at and from just a little bit we know of MTSS math, is they're both recommending moving away from spiraling programs. What we'd like to do over the next 6 months, 9 months, is to be able to put our cadre together. We've already selected the people and are starting that process, but we'd like to get them up to speed on Common Core, specifically on the math side, and we'd like to send them at least through the MTSS math structuring piece so that we know what Common Core is asking for curriculum and we know what MTSS, and even if we don't go into MTSS for another 3 years, 4 years, we want to make sure whatever we adopt is set up for that. So that's kind of what we're looking at this point.
Okay. Any other questions or comments about that item? Okay, the next one I put, and this came up at all of the buildings as well, to continue to search for a good diagnostic tool for math. It would seem like there would be one out there, but if there is, nobody in Kansas seems to have found it. That comes across on every superintendent's listserv, every curriculum director's listserv. It's, what are you using for a math diagnostic? We can't find anything that we like or that meets our needs. My particular opinion is that there's been so much emphasis on reading. I think the research has all been slanted toward reading. The curriculum producers are focusing on reading. I think that will gradually turn, and somebody's going to have to develop a better math screener, but there just does not appear to be one at this point. And I guarantee it's not for lack of effort for looking. We just can't find anything that really meets our needs at this point.
If you were to give me the 10-cent definition of what meets your needs, what would that be?
Well, it'd be a tool that would accurately diagnose holes in the learning of students so that we know exactly what their learning issue is. For Ames Web in English Language Arts can tell us if it's fluency or it's comprehension or it's vocabulary. It's very specific in its diagnosis, and there just isn't anything similar for math at this point.
And with the Common Core changing and the way it looks, I think finding a diagnostic that's going to focus on those areas that we need to look at, those rhythms, that's not even out there. It's the same thing with an assessment. I think it's all going to change anyway once the Common Core comes out.
Well, math is a different animal than reading anyway in terms of what it requires. I mean, because you've got computational skills.
But the Common Core coming out, with it not just reading, but the Common Core coming out is heavy in reading and problem solving, and so they have
Critical thinking.
Oh, absolutely.
So really, language is almost, the question would be with MTSS and language, how much does that correlate to the kids having difficulty in math because of the problems?
The other piece on the diagnostic side of math, we went to the MTSS symposium back in the fall. One of the things they talked about that they're seeing diagnostics drastically change right now. So it used to be on the math side, you went real black and white, and you pinpointed down to one specific skill.
Mm-hmm.
Now what they're saying is kids that are low in math are low in multiple skills. And so a lot of your diagnostics are in the process of changing, and part of this is with Common Core. If anything, Common Core probably slowed down the process because RTI, which started the whole MTSS thing, was on the reading side, and then we tried to switch it over and make it fit the math side, and nobody's really perfected that test. And so even the Ames Web's math piece that's there has a diagnostic piece, but it's a timed test, and so when you start dealing especially with students on the special education side, you don't get real accurate data. Plus it's the kind of thing that if they just get stuck on a specific question, you have no idea what else they know. So, I mean, I know Nancy Baylor was working a little bit last year on looking for some, and is continuing to do that this year too.
And with language, you have a continuum. Following up. If they don't have this, then you got to start here and move this direction. With math, we don't have that at this point. If they don't have this, it doesn't necessarily mean they don't understand this or that, because math is broken into four components, computation, algebra, geometry, data. So it's just different ways of thinking. So yeah, it's difficult to do those.
Is there any institution of higher learning working on this as a specialty?
I'm sure they are, it's just a matter
I
of.
didn't know if anybody
Someone's
would.
going to make a lot of money once they find
Yeah.
out.
I think just industry-wide, all the effort's been poured into reading
Oh, yeah.
the last few years, and the math will catch up hopefully soon. Anything else on that topic? All right, the next one, continue to build strong collaborative relationships between gen ed and special ed staff members. I know from conversations with some of you, you're thinking, well, can we continue something that hasn't even started yet? And I really believe in the years that I've been here, I've seen a drastic switch in that. We're still not where we need to be by a long shot, but I do think special ed and general ed are working better together now than they have ever before. Just some things that I think point to that. I know Dr. Cobbs has instituted some changes at the high school in terms of all of their teachers now are coming to IEPs. They have the 4 special ed teachers that they have there have 20 teaching slots, and of those 20, 15 of them are class within a class situations where they're teaching in tandem with a general education instructor. 5 years ago, I don't think we were doing any of that. So I think that's a big step in the right direction. I know there's some collaborative teaching going on at the middle school.
Sped teachers did that. They've been doing whole units at this point, class within class.
Comments from some of the elementary principals were that they feel like there's a lot better relationship because of the interaction caused by MTSS with the Tier 3 interventions and the Tier 2 and working back and forth, some of those kids changing groups. There was definitely a number of years ago a your kids and my kids kind of mentality, and I think slowly but surely we're moving toward our kids, which is obviously where we want to be. So is the problem fixed? No. Are we headed in the right direction? I really believe that we are. Any other comments or questions on that one? Okay, and then finally, reassign staff as deemed necessary to maximize student achievement. I believe the most valuable thing to the students of our district to come out of the negotiations process this year was the change to the transfer policy and also the staff discipline policy that was ratified. Up till this point, according to the negotiated agreement, teachers were virtually undisciplinable. Probably just made up a word there, but I really think that's kind of the attitude that some of them had. And again, it's a small number. Anything in the negotiated agreement that's controversial only affects half a dozen teachers district-wide. The vast majority of our teachers are very good. They work really hard. They want to do what's best for kids. There's a handful that maybe need a little focusing. Let's put it that way. And I think the changes that have been made in the transfer policy and the addition of a staff discipline policy will really allow us to put a little positive pressure on those individuals and move them off center.
Very nice.
Anything else?
Thank you for your hard work in this.
Sure.
I have a question for Dean. So Dean, these are the recommendations for improvement. So then who's responsible for them and what kind of timeline is there for implementation and how will we know it's worked?
I guess I don't understand what you're talking about there.
Basically, well, I mean, things like a curriculum director or each
No,
one of
we
these are
will-
like an action plan.
we
And so
will
if we
put
don't
together-
assign it to somebody
Right.
or give it a timeline in terms of when it can get done.
Well, I guess what
might
we
get
can do is
lost.
put a timeline on those. A lot of them we're doing currently, like the MTSS implementing with
Right.
Fidelity district-wide, those things. As far as the curriculum director, that's something that, as a board, we need to talk about that position, how that would look, and then try to implement that next year, work on the budget, do those things. But we can put a timeline together for the ones that, you would do that. But as far as reassigning staff, we'll talk about, some of those things, as we go with personnel and
Right.
things. And
Well, and like searching for a good diagnostic tool for math, if it's Nancy
It's-
Baylor's job where you assign it to someone
I
or
see
some
what you're
people,
saying, yeah.
then if she's just kind of looking around a little bit or it's real important, then it's assigned to someone in timeline
Okay.
and I don't know.
Well, just to go back to the piece about the curriculum director, there was a discussion in his documentation about some of the accountability pieces that the curriculum director supposedly would need to have. And one of the questions I raised is, okay, who's doing that today? And, I mean, is it a case of we have had this person, have people assigned to cover this now? Or is this a new recollection based on this conversation that, wait a minute, we have an accountability gap? And how are we handling that today? Because, best case scenario, we're probably a year away from a curriculum director.
yeah, there's no
You know,
doubt.
So,
Yeah.
And we have had some of these same goals for quite a number of years, like the differentiated instruction and, building the strong relationships between general ed and special ed. How will we know if we ever get there or if it works or doesn't work, I guess. And it's been an ongoing theme at times that has come up, so I just kind of
Well, I
wanted to
could
know some.
work on, some of them are just going to be continuing, and so there won't be really a start date and an end date. But on those that have it, some of them are going to be budget driven. Whether it's adding staff, obviously, is going to be a budgetary issue. But I'll try and put together something for you and get it out to you guys. It has kind of a timeline along with them.
At our next meeting, Susan, that's what I want to do for pretty much the whole entire meeting. The second one in November is go through our goals, and we do have the SMART goals with the timelines and who's responsible, those things, but readdress all of those. And some of these things probably aren't specific in that, and we can redo those and put all that together. But,
I guess, yeah, because basically our test data showed that we may need some shoring up or some additional resource or additional focus
and
or
a lot of it,
something
yeah,
in this area.
no doubt. And a lot of it's the transition of going into a lot of these things. I mean, statewide scores were down, And again, I don't want to come across as making any kind of excuses at all, but you know, when we started cutting a lot of the things, it is going to have an impact.
Sure, absolutely.
But we need to address those and see what we are going to be capable of doing, and then be cognizant, obviously, of the budget and where we're going to be in 2 years from now. So,
Be able to articulate that, so.
but yeah, we can do that at the next meeting. That'd be good.
Curriculum director, we need to add as part of our planning for budget and our board retreat in January.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep, I agree. I just wanted to mention under this little section here too, and we had talked before the meeting that the Challenge Award Lincoln received, that Josh, Marge, myself, and I think Nancy Baylor is going to be all going to Junction City then Wednesday to receive that. That's a neat thing, and we'll represent the district.
That's cool. That's very exciting. Okay, 5.04 board reports. Marge, I know you had one or two.
Yes, I have at least one. Usually do.
Oh, we'd start down there and come.
ORC, by the way, I'm going to start my report, but they're meeting Wednesday night. Dennis, is there a way that you could attend a meeting since I'm going to be in Junction City?
I'm going to be at KHA meeting, work.
Okay, so I guess no one will be there unless somebody wants to volunteer to go.
It's my
It's
last
6 o'clock at ORC, that's where they meet. But I'll be in Junction City, so I won't be able to go. Basically, they finally got the 501c3 finished, done.
I think we pretty much talked that out.
Well,
It's really true. They finally got to talk that out and got the 501c3.
I am so glad that happened in my report. See, it's not always Marge Stevens that messes with technology.
Is that detention, or is that, what is
That's
that?
at least
It was, how many points is that?
3
worth?
points,
That's
3 points.
Okay.
At least
Points.
three.
Where's Dr. Cobbs when we need him?
Yeah.
Anyway, they based that 501c3 on when it was finally applied for, and so they're about a year behind. I mean, we have 2 years instead of the 3 years we normally have, so they're going to start early, so this won't ever happen again. A lot of the, several people have said checks in the mail. They were just waiting for that classification, and then the monies are starting to come in now, which is a good thing, because our summer that we had, they were going with a electric bill of around 2,000, and it was like 7,000, and so that wrecked all sorts of budgets. And they're hurting. And also, the participation, and I think this is sad and it's interesting to me, the participation of small children up until like 4th, 5th grade are doing well in all their sports. But then from that age up, and maybe even a little bit like 3rd or 4th, there's so many private teams that they're hurting the other regular ORC leagues. So they're working on trying to do some things about that, but it's kind of a hard thing. Those private teams want to use the fields when they want to use the fields, but of course no money's trading hands, and it's kind of a hard situation for them to be in. The adult programs are up and going fine. There's adding a senior trip. They've already, I think, had one or planning to have one, and then another, a mystery trip or something like that. They're doing everything they think of to bring money in on the adult side, and it's those lower kids that's having the money problems. I'm not saying they're in trouble or anything, but they've had to really skirt around to try to figure out how to do things. No one knew what the Goppert Center was going to cost as far as upkeep. They had a guess, but they didn't guess in the right direction.
Yeah, and 110-degree weather didn't help either.
No, that first year out, it sure didn't. It would have been better if we'd have had that year, the prior year or whatever. But anyway, I think they're still having, there's hope for us. I believe, with Lincoln and wherever, because they're still having trouble with their gym floor, but they are working together to solve the problem, which I think is pretty unique, coming from where we're sitting. But anyway, I think that's all.
Any reports?
I went to KASB's legislative committee meeting and their board meeting a couple Saturdays ago and spent most of Saturday up there. So we finalized our legislative agenda and it should be coming out for anyone to review. You go to the KASB website, but we'll be voting on the delegate assembly on Sunday coming up. So it's an interesting process going through that, the legislative process. So I don't know if anyone will listen to us based upon the elections, but we have a policy.
Well, thank you for going. Anybody else? Reports?
I don't necessarily have a report, but I'd just like to say for all the veterans that are employed here in our district, you know, it's been a great weekend, and I want to thank them for their service to our country and as well as our district. I think it's important that we recognize them as much as we can, because they sacrifice a great deal as well as their families. So.
Certainly.
And I have something that's really not a report, but Teresa sent an email about the angel tree. And as I read that email, I was thinking it would be really nice to this board to do something collectively for the angel tree. Maybe individually we do, but I just thought it would be kind of neat to,
That'd be good.
if this board could do something for that.
Can we form a committee to look into that?
If you want to head it up, then you can.
No, I think we just do it.
And the timeline's short, Bill.
I know that.
All righty. 5.05. Mr. Cat.
Okay, if you pull up the other one, that one. This is they don't send a new printout, so if you look at the bottom, you'll see that it changed a little bit. After the auditor got back to Topeka and started looking at some things, he actually gave us 0.9 FTE more than what he did when he left. So that was good news. So it changed our FTE, total FTE to 3,809.2. If you look at the right side of this, you can see the pluses and minuses of FTE differences. And if you look at first grade, there's 2. We had something that I've never had happen before, and I've never heard of it, but obviously it's right, that we had 2 kids in first grade that their birthdays fall to where they could be in kindergarten, and they actually only gave us half the funding for a first grader. I didn't know even though they couldn't, and I questioned it, but they go by their birthday, even if they're in first grade, which I didn't know that one. And then there was,
So Dean, so you're telling me summer
together.
birthday people that get held back a year could be penalizing us in the future?
if they're held back, no, these students should be.
If they're accelerated.
These kids are accelerated.
Yeah.
Okay. So if they're really technically a first grader, but because of a summer birthday, we keep them at kindergarten, you get a full FTE?
Not if you keep them in kindergarten, but they fund them like they're in kindergarten, even though they're in first grade, which to me doesn't make a lot of sense. But anyway, that's something new that I learned this year.
That's a good one.
Yeah. If you look at.
Round back math, I think he needs math.
I'm afraid we're probably going to run into quite a bit more of
We
that.
need more of that MTSS stuff.
Well, that just makes no sense.
No. If you look at the top of that, preschool, special ed, 3, 4, and 5-year-olds, we had several students there, and we look into this and see what the changes and differences were. And I think we actually had the 4.5 students that are peer models listed as being in the preschool special ed program, and therefore they didn't count towards the funding. Non-graded, that is the future visions, those types of programs. The technical ed hours, you can see down at the bottom, we ended up with 5.6, actually 6.5 now, more than what we had turned in. Auditor does a good job of checking all those hours, and there was a couple classes I think that we didn't know counted or high school didn't know they counted anyway, and he gave us those, so that was good. At-risk head count, you can see we lost a little bit there, which isn't unusual. They have to verify, and Teresa may have to explain a little bit here. This year, or last year, the legislators made a big issue of those students that don't qualify for free lunches. If you still got the funding for them, and now this year she had to turn in certifications of those families that I don't know how many you had to send out, but if they didn't verify, then they were dropped from the free lunch, and we didn't get the funding for them. So that made a little bit of difference, and I think I explained that accurately. But things are changing there. There's more accountability on the parents' part, and we need to make sure that they actually qualify, and we do lose funding over that. The virtual FTE we lost from what we turned in. It's still higher than what we projected, 2.4. Transportation, I'm always disappointed in that, and I don't know how often and how many times the principals, myself, secretaries, we all talk about transportation and who qualifies to 2.5 miles. And I think what happens a lot of times, even with Tom and everyone that works on the transportation report, use the GPS system and it'll show 2.5 or more miles, but when the auditor comes, if he takes a different route or for whatever reason, maybe his tires are the wrong size on his car, I don't know, but he always finds this long list of kids. Yeah,
We could always slice
he always
his
finds
tires.
this long list of students that don't qualify, and some of them we shake our head at, some was just a mistake. But anyway, that's a pretty big dip there, the 6.8 FTE for transportation. But overall, we're at 3809, which is still higher than what we had anticipated. It's lower than what our SO66, that's the report we fill out based on our count on the 20th. It's 7.6 less than that, but it is 19.5 higher than what our working budget was, that are reality numbers when we really look to see what where we're going to be, and that's about $74,000 more than what we had anticipated. So that's good news. Questions, and then the other one is just the breakdown with all of the audited numbers except this 0.9 in the vocational ed FTE, but those numbers all correspond. Other than that 0.9, it didn't get changed on here yet, but that's the breakdown of FTE and the report for enrollment anyway.
So on days when you think you're having a bad day, you can remember you could be the auditor
Yeah,
of the state who
that'd
has
be
to
the
do-
last thing I'd want to do.
Exactly,
Dennis
that's
has
my point.
experience with that too, I think, don't you?
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
I couldn't do it.
Eugene Field air samples. We received the air sample report on November 6th, and we're going to continue to monitor. And if you look at the graphs, we did the all-day testing, and the CO2 levels, this is the same type of system or same type of device that tested the CO2, and the graph, just cuts this off where it looks the flat line across the top at 2,500. When it reaches that, that's as high as it goes on the monitor. Obviously, the levels could be higher. So obviously, we have an issue with CO2 in the modular classrooms that we need to address. Right now, the engineers are looking at that, trying to figure out what type of ventilation system we need. I know the first thing that was thrown out was, gosh, some astronomical numbers worth more or cost more than all the modulars together and everything else we've done. But I think it's going to be, I say, a fairly simple fix. I think with having the windows and a separate
Windows can turn on.
a separate HVAC system, I think you can circulate the air a lot easier, and that's something that we're working on actually right now, and should have the pricing for that. The humidity issue, humidity was a little bit high, and on the day that it was pretty humid outside, but shouldn't exceed 60%. And again, that's if we run the air conditioning, that pulls that humidity level down. Temperatures were okay. You can see it was a little bit high, but again, those are set by themselves. They can turn on the AC whenever they need them there. So as we get the information back on what type of system, we'll have to address that here in the very near future. Hopefully at the next board meeting we'll have more information. A couple other things that they're working on there is the PTO had approached me about the playground, and they're going to start doing some fundraisers and looking at playground equipment. So we had Greenbush come in and do a study of the playground, and I don't have the results of that. I think they were here late last week. But they will tell us if anything is out of compliance. They'll check the level of the mulch, and I know that needs to change already. But give us some recommendations on what we need to do on the playground to make it safe. And as we get that again, we will look at those recommendations and see what PTO can come up with and have a plan. One of the things that keeps coming up, whether it's through our Homeland Security report, the KLN visit mentioned this as part of it, but there's not fencing around the whole playground area. So I know Richard is working on pricing for a lot of these different things, and that's one thing, is to fence off the playground area to where right now people can just walk right through it coming down the street, and at least deter that a little bit and keep the balls from going in the street. So we're looking at all of those options too, and should have pricing and those things, like I said, coming up hopefully at the end of the month.
Dean, I have a question.
Yes.
Not really a question about the air quality, and I hate to even bring it up, but I was thinking about this. If we're having trouble with the modulars at Eugene Field, have we checked the modulars everywhere else for problems? Have we
It
checked
would be
their air
that
quality?
we haven't checked out here, but it more than likely that would probably be as
Same thing.
close to. There's not as many kids at one time, I know, but
Well, I was just thinking, maybe taking care of it before it balloons into a big problem, if possible.
but we can sure check. A couple dates that we need to discuss. The ECAN annual dinner is November 20th. That's next Tuesday already.
You can come, Dean.
Dennis, okay, I will.
20th?
Yes.
I should be there.
You always have a chance to win a
Watch toy.
Christmas toy or
Bunch of big hanging
Oh.
Christmas.
ornaments.
I will not be there.
Okay.
I can't be there either.
David,
I can make that.
I will, and I'll be there. I will turn us for Brandon, Marge, either one. Okay. I will turn us in for that. And then the joint luncheon, I sent the email out. We canceled that on the 21st. And then the next meeting will be on the November 27th. That's the legislative dinner, 5:30 at Neosho County in their auditorium, I guess is what they call it. It's that room right when you come in the door. Who can attend that or wants to attend that?
I can do that.
Okay, let me.
What day of the week is that?
Should be Tuesday night, 5:30.
So
The
let's get it
27th.
done.
David, yes.
Yeah, I can do it.
Will the food be good?
Usually.
Usually catered by
All right, well, I'll be there.
Brandon,
I think I can. Be down, please.
Susan.
It's not gonna be like Thanksgiving leftovers, is it?
Bill, no.
Yes.
Turkey.
Yeah.
Brandon, Marge.
Chicken and rice pilaf. and green
It'll
beans.
be interesting to see our new legislators there and the interaction and see what we can find out.
Gonna nail them to the
Bet
zipper.
whether they show up or not.
And that starts at, yeah, I know, who knows? That
5:30.
starts at 5:30, pretty early on the 27th. And then obviously the KASB convention, Brandon had alluded to that earlier. That starts on Friday, goes through Sunday. We need to probably get some things sent in for that next week, if at all possible. Let's see. If you want to get with Teresa, probably, if you know now, if you're going to go Thursday or Friday, or not Thursday or Friday, geez. If you're going Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, I don't think anyone said they were going on Friday night. I'm not going to make it up there on Friday night, but Saturday, how many people on Saturday?
I'll be there on Saturday.
And I'm gonna swing over after work since
I think
it's
so.
in
I don't
peak,
know.
isn't it?
Yes, Dennis and Brandon,
I'm gonna try, I don't know.
And me.
Marge?
What was the date?
My
Susan, and,
calendar. Let me look
okay,
at my
well, let
calendar.
us know, I'm not gonna
Sorry.
get Marge.
What I was thinking.
Oh, yours did.
Okay, so I have Dennis, Brandon, and Marge, and myself on that. And then Sunday, who's gonna go up Sunday to Marge? Anyone else?
I'm a maybe that weekend on the whole thing.
Okay, let us know, David, and then Sunday will be Marge and myself then for delegate assembly. And I think that's the governmental relations that morning too, so. Okay, and then the next thing, Paola's legislative dinner's coming up, January 2nd. It sounds like a long time, but I need to RSVP December 10th. That's, again, it'll be interesting to see how that goes this year, but if you know now,
Tentative, yes.
Susan, Dennis, do you know yet, or?
What day of the week is that?
It's January 2nd.
The day after New Year's?
Yes.
Isn't it a Tuesday?
I can do it, Dean.
I will not be able to.
I can't guarantee.
I can't.
Boy, isn't that bowl night?
Yeah, it's,
I'll be there.
You'll be
Yeah.
gone, Marge, or
I'll be there, I
Okay.
think.
Marge?
Any games that
I honestly don't know if I
Okay,
can.
it's a ways out. I won't
Yeah,
RSVP,
it's
but just to
a
get
ways
that
out.
on your
West
calendar,
Virginia.
so.
Okay.
That is my report.
Okay. Moving on to section 6.01, community survey discussion. Marge got all of her information back to Dean. Did a good job.
I need to,
And
if you look at
nobody
the.
else had any input, so we're gonna go with whatever we think.
If you look
Well,
at,
Susan, I think we
The
look
person
at
who
it.
cannot use the computer did it.
I know, I'm proud of you.
He is, she updated, and then Marge's question, I think it's pretty straightforward where we need to serve it. I mean, we've
Yeah.
hit a lot of topics, and I'm not a crafter of questions.
Yep.
no, she'll craft the questions, but
There's
what
the
you have
list.
in front of you is the latest. And a couple things that, I guess, glance through that and see if there's anything else that you think we need to add. And this isn't any means the final thing. Elaine will wordsmith the questions, those things, and then we'll come back and see if we want to put anything about Eugene Field. As far as remodel those things, I think we've already had that discussion and probably not look at some of those things. So if you have a different thought, let me know.
Like the Eugene Field, I think that still needs to be a question we need to address because we went down the road a long ways, so
Okay,
You do or don't think we need
we
to?
should.
it should be on there, okay?
Yeah, it's 'cause they want 'em.
Except that we've already done most of the things in that question there. On
Well,
Eugene.
we haven't done.
Oh, Eugene Field. Yeah.
We go the rest of the way.
Oh, yeah.
And still keep it.
And
Yeah.
is everyone okay then with building a new high school or that type of question then?
Yeah.
Because I think we've talked about that quite a bit too, and that should give us some insight on what people are thinking. What would be the easiest to sell?
The one question I'd like to ask you, if we need to, with the environment in Topeka, if more dollars are shifted back to the local school district to keep schools open, some type of question, what level is that? Because with the current Brownback administration, I still strongly believe they're going to open up LOB and shrink regular general funding, which really will push districts with haves and have-nots using, like Johnson County using sales tax or other areas. I think we need some question in finance,
So something to the effect of,
not just for building
no,
finance,
but to
operational.
raise
Finance.
the mill levy or raise the percentage for LOB or capital outlay, something like that.
Yeah.
If it's,
That'll be a hard question to structure because most people have difficulty understanding that.
Right.
In the context of, if the state says we're not going to fund at this level, but we need this to be able to function. How do we do that?
Yeah, I mean, but we can put something together.
Yeah, I agree. It's just a matter of
Okay.
writing it in a manner that people understand it.
Last time's question was more on what would you support for actual bricks and mortars.
Right.
I think we've got questions coming out, what are you willing to support for actual operations?
Yeah, because we're going to probably get to that point.
I mean, what's the rest, I mean, when I heard what Sam did on Friday with his committee on efficiencies, I think there could be some pushback on funding on the state level.
Well, did I understand that Brownback had also asked for some kind of state review on local property tax increases?
Yes.
And so he's trying to get his hand into that too?
And
Was he the one that voted that we should secede from the union? Was he the one that?
No, he's not on the list of the 22 that
Okay.
requested that so far.
All right.
But, yeah, it's, what I fear is it's gonna fall back a lot on property tax through what we're just talking about here, whether it's local option budget, capital outlay, whatever local money you can.
I think,
And I think it's the wrong direction, but.
I think current administration is gonna try to limit that also. I think there's, well.
Well, I do too.
I think they're antagonistic towards public education.
Mhm.
It's sad
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah, I sure won't disagree with that. Obviously, do we need to ask about the equity issue with the elementaries? I mean, I thought this was worded as
Yes.
a question. It's not.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, something about equity issues and how do we do that? I think that helps them understand where we are with, especially Eugene Field. You know, it's major stuff to make it equitable when you look at the
Yeah.
lunchroom, gymnasium, those things. Okay, and in types of programs, reinstate career clusters and, I mean, vocational programs. And we're actually, the county superintendents and Anderson County Superintendent, Neosho County economic development people, we're all gonna meet here and discuss how, if there's things that Neosho County can do, workforce type programs, vocational programs. I would really like to see a regional vocational school of some sort. And I think other community colleges are doing that. Allen County, I know, is working.
Wasn't Neosho's long-term plan, though, is to build a vocational building?
So we're going to meet about that, but I think that is so important. We are really out of room for a lot of program expansion, you know, in our current high school. You know, I hope we can reinstate the hire teacher for the building project, house project, those types of things. And then, you know, we've made some cuts in the past. Family consumer science was one. A couple of years ago, we had 3 teachers, cut that back to 2.
Well, we had that on our agenda to do a new classrooms for.
Exactly.
FACS,
We had the
to do a new
culinary
catch in our
class and all
culinary
of those
classes
things
and
were,
some of that.
that might be a good thing there. Yeah, the culinary program.
Marge, on your one comment, were you wanting to expand that on F on number 4 to include proper and ethical use of emails and your social use?
Believe me, that was not
Okay.
that was not on my paper at all.
After what's happened this week, I was just looking that maybe we need to expand that one, if that one was yours.
And then under the technology piece, one-to-one initiative, device versus traditional book, internet access at home. I think we need to ask some technology questions. Andy and I had this discussion there on internet and Wi-Fi access at home. This survey isn't going to be every student's family, but it may give us some insight on accessibility to these things. And then before we do, you know, a full one-to-one initiative or keep expanding, we need to really find out what kind of roadblocks we're going to have for student access at home for internet or Wi-Fi. So we'll probably do a survey within the school, high school also. But But are you okay asking some of these technology questions and
Sure.
how many, have a device that they could bring? And actually, we have a lot of kids. I don't know, Carmen, you use, some of your classes have the kids use their phones now. Is that correct for?
Basically, kind of went with the idea that, any kind of technology that we use as a resource, it's kind of just understanding that, I'm sure you guys have seen the geo boards that kids with rubber bands, these little peg boards, kids take them out, they want to play with them. You gotta give those kids that opportunity to kind of go, all right, this is fun, let's have a little, now we're going to talk about what we're going to do on here. It's a tool, and it's, you have that conversation with the teachers, and
Carmen, I know you guys have used the cell phones as a, to poll, yeah. That created a crisis at my house, because one kid had the phone and the other one didn't. So my only advice is if you're going to be using those for those, a little advance warning to moms and dads would be a good thing. We're going to be using cell phones in this capacity.
So the students or parents know, I mean, and I
Have one there.
To have one there, and if they don't have one, how is it being handled?
yeah.
they use their name. We talk about it. It's not about having one out. Talk with your neighbor. You guys can put together. The kids get together. Like we did a Jeopardy game over the common courtesies we were talking about. Character ed. One of our contestants, we had two for each grade level, came up and he didn't have his phone. He wanted to be able to phone a friend in case he needed to answer a question. And some of the kids from the audience said, hey, just use mine. And so they borrowed. So usually it's just a conversation. It's not a have to.
Well, yeah, I understand,
But I understand what you're saying as far as them wanting their phone and being able to be a part of it. So it's one of those things where, we plan all these things, and it's kind of like one of the last things we want to do if it fits and it doesn't. And that makes sense. Yeah, we're trying to incorporate as much as we can.
Well, and it might be worth, we know that less than 30% of the people take the Ottawa Herald. So what's the best way to get information out
Yeah,
to the
and-
community? What's the best way?
And that's the next thing there about social media and social networking. How do we do that? I know the email, people really appreciate that. We're starting to use the Facebook page more. I was so excited today. I had a request for a friend. I still don't know if I have a personal Facebook account or not. I didn't think I did. So I click on this, and it's all the Viagra, Cialis, all these advertisements for this stuff, and I'm like, how in the world did I get this stuff, But,
What a friend.
anyway, but we'll ask some questions with that too.
Okay?
And then the last one, the climate question. Susan and I talked about this a little bit.
Let me tell them what I think.
Okay.
I think on this one here, the only person we hire is Dean, and I don't know that people like the principals and the assistant superintendent should be out there on this survey. I mean, if someone is to make a comment about that, I mean, the comments can be provided, but I'm not really all about thinking that we ought to put, I don't know.
Yeah, I see your point.
I think that's maybe, I mean, we can ask generalized climate questions without being specific to positions and/or, because we feel as a board, it's important to have someone who's responsible for human resources. We know the value of that position, whether the public necessarily gets it or not. I don't know. I'm a little, I don't know. I just feel like that isn't the people we hired. We hire him.
Yeah, there's something to that.
The last time we did this survey, some of you were on here, and
Yeah.
the thing that was so disheartening, I guess, when the comments that we got back, the personal comments, I mean, it was asked about the board. I mean, did we gain what we wanted from those questions on there? I mean, you just let me know, I'll do whatever.
Yeah, Marge and I, we know that we're getting rich from this.
Yeah.
We still
Yeah,
know
that
that
was
from the
one of
last
them. Thank
survey,
you.
yeah. But
Well, I don't think
know
there's,
that we
I don't
gained
think
a
there's
lot.
any problem to get feedback from the board. I mean, that's on the board. That's fine. And I agree, the superintendent can be evaluated, but I agree that principals and, other identified.
I'll be honest with you. My experience in doing those kinds of climate questions where you identify how well do you trust X, how well do you trust Y, basically that's an open season on pot shots. You're not going to get a lot of positive commentary in that regard. if there are other ways that you can do it, either with Likert scales or things like that, that don't offer opportunities for pot shots, I would be open to that. But an open-ended questions, well, how well do you trust the board to do this? Or how well do you trust the superintendent to do that? I think you're asking for pot shots. I don't think that's necessarily a viable option.
There may be better ways of answering that question, but I think you go in expecting the criticism, and that's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
I don't have any problem with criticism, and I assume that there's plenty of people that think I'm screwing up as a board member, but I would rather hear it than not hear it.
Well, like I say, I'm not opposed to a more, continuum of response type question of climate, but just an open blank, what do you think of, and then give the opportunity for people to make negative comments.
Why don't I sit down with Elaine and talk about that? I'm sure that she's gone through the whole gamut
I'm sure
of
she
stuff,
has,
and she can come up with something. And
Just looking at
when
the
she-
last questions, Dean, last time we said you're trust of the school board, but we gave them a total open-ended comment.
Right.
And the open-ended comment included the effectiveness of your administrators, teachers, and support staff. So I think the personal open-ended question is where it went into the personal ones, because they said, we appreciate your additional comment and suggestions. We may want to comment on suggestions to improve the overall education of the district and effectiveness of board members, administrators, and teachers. So that's the open-ended question that got all the free spirit. Because the two up here about the board was, which one of the following best describes your trust of the school board? And which one best following describes confidence in your school board? So it got personal when we gave them that open-ended instruction.
And again, I don't have any problem with leaving it open-ended, but I think there's probably a better way to ask the questions to get some valuable information.
Yeah.
Okay.
We let them go after even the kitchen staff.
Yeah, I know, and that.
Well, yeah, they deserve to be gone after, I think. All those vegetables and crap.
And wheat, whole wheat.
Oh,
Whole wheat's terrible.
sad.
We will.
Fried foods.
I'll get with Elaine, take this stuff, get with her, talk about it, have her start drafting something, and then we'll work through that process. And it's far from final, but it'll give us a good starting point anyway. So we'll get that started ASAP.
All right, moving on to 6.02. We have boy and girl soccer uniforms that no longer meet the new code as was presented. Do we have a motion to declare them as surplus?
So moved.
Moved by Bill.
Second.
Second by David. Any questions, discussion?
So will the new uniforms have home and away colors? Will they all, so you'll have a white home and a red or black away, or how will that work?
Right, exactly.
That's my understanding.
Home team is,
Opposed to they used to just have a single color.
yeah. Which, the kids are probably down on this because, they see their favorite, Manchester United or whoever playing, and pretty snappy uniforms.
Yeah.
Yeah, they get the old drab whites.
Yep, and as a mother, white is not a good
Color for
turf-related
anything, yeah.
outfit.
I wonder why it's soccer. Why?
Well, I think all the others, Austin,
other
don't
teams
they
have.
have, there is a difference in home and away.
Yeah,
and
basketball does, football does, volleyball
light and
does.
dark.
Well,
and all
yeah,
those things.
yeah. But there's always I don't know. We have home and away jerseys now, and everybody else does, as far as I know, in the soccer squads. I don't know why there's. It sounds to me like they're that the primary color of the jersey, not the shorts, but the jersey has to be all white, and I don't know.
Well, and you would think the home jersey would be your colors, not white. And white would be the away team.
Right.
Some very anal
When you're
referees.
gonna, yeah.
Well, great move.
All I know
But
is
whatever money's generated then will go to purchasing new uniforms.
freight,
And
yeah,
the
new freight.
Booster Club always helps with some of those things too, but,
It seems like to me this is a little like the guy who came and audited our stuff. It's a bigger
Yeah.
fish to fry, let's focus.
How long for
Anyway,
executive?
all in favor, raise your right hand.
How long for executive?
7-0.
Brian, how long executive session do you think? 15, 20
What a-
minutes? What do you,
There's no section 7.
15?
right, no section 7.
Nope.
You're moving on to
No, we're not
section 8.
negotiating, which. makes
Madam
everybody
Chair, I
happy.
move the board go into executive
You
session
cannot
for the purpose of
negotiate.
discussing personnel matters, not elected personnel. The board return to the meeting
We need to start this to get it going.
8:40 o'clock in this room. The executive session is required to protect the privacy interests of an identifiable individual.
Second.
Okay, motion by Dennis, second by Brian. All in favor, raise your right hand. 7-0.
That gets us to 15 minutes plus a transition.
Plus the